While I ate my birthday dinner alone, I felt the weight of emptiness pressing down on my chest. The restaurant was dimly lit, candles flickering on each table, couples laughing and celebrating. But at my table, the chair across from me remained empty. I had expected a quiet night. My wife had promised she'd be home early, but even that promise had been hollow. The waiter brought the small birthday dessert I had ordered for myself, complete with a single candle, and I forced a smile as I made a silent wish. Meanwhile, at home, my wife and family were throwing a celebration that had nothing to do with me. The laughter, the clinking of glasses, the excitement, it all revolved around my younger brother, who had just gotten engaged. They had planned it secretly, perhaps thinking I would never notice, perhaps believing I wouldn't mind. But I could feel it in my bones. The betrayal was sharp, slicing to the hollow cavity in my chest where trust and love had once resided. A week ago, my wife had called me, her voice sweet and casual. "We need your help with your brother's wedding," she said. I had listened patiently, masking the growing unease in my throat. They wanted my opinion, my guidance, my support. After tonight, after seeing the truth, I realized it wasn't a request. It was a demand, a way to pull me back into a family that had sidelined me, to make me complicit in their favoritism. I finished my dessert and left a generous tip. The city air outside felt sharp and liberating, cutting to the fog of disappointment that had clouded me all evening. I walked past the familiar streets with a cold clarity forming in my mind. I didn't just feel abandoned. I felt unseen, unvalued, replaced. And as I walked, I made a decision that would change everything. The next morning, they called me again about the wedding plans. My voice was calm, almost unnervingly so, when I answered. "I think you'll have to manage without me," I said. There was a pause, the kind that stretched uncomfortably over the phone line, before my wife asked, incredulous, "What do you mean?" "You can't just—" "I mean exactly that." I interrupted gently, a finality in my tone that left no room for argument. I've spent enough time being invisible in my own life. It's time I stopped being a backup, a placeholder, a spectator. The calls stopped after that. I packed a small bag, my heart pounded with the thrill and terror of liberation. I didn't leave a note. I didn't send messages. I simply walked out of my apartment, walked past the streets that had once held comfort, and boarded the first flight to anywhere. For hours on the plane, I stared out the window, the world shrinking below me and expanding ahead. There was a sense of weightlessness, of freedom, a terrifying exhilaration that came from severing ties not with anger, but with clarity and resolve. I realized that life is too short to spend it being sidelined, waiting for recognition from people who can't see your worth. I thought about my brother, unaware that his wedding plans had been the catalyst for this rupture. I thought about my wife, who had hidden her priorities under a veneer of domestic normalcy. And I thought about myself, the quiet strength that had been lying dormant, waiting for the right moment to emerge. By the time the plane touched down, I had a new sense of identity, a reclamation of my own story. I was no longer the man who dined alone, overlooked and undervalued. I was someone who had finally drawn a line, who had finally chosen himself over the hollow rituals of others. Weeks later, I heard fragments of news. Family gossip, mentions of frantic searches, panic calls. They had assumed I would eventually come back, that I would apologize or explain. But I didn't. Silence became my message. My absence became my declaration, that I would not allow myself to be erased or used again. Some nights, I still feel a pang of loneliness. Some nights, I wonder what they thought when they realized I wouldn't answer calls, wouldn't participate, wouldn't return. But those nights are tempered by the quiet satisfaction of reclaiming my life, by the thrill of existing on my own terms, free from manipulation and favoritism. I don't know where I will go next, who I will meet, what adventures lie ahead. All I know is that I am no longer a background character in my own life. I am the protagonist now, and I will never allow anyone to make me feel invisible again. The plane doors opened, the city stretched out beneath me, and I smiled. For the first time in years, I felt fully alive and fully seen by the only person whose opinion truly mattered, me.